Hi, I'm Lydia Carradine. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. I am melanated, hyphenated, and convalescent. I'm an actress and writer, and I am exploring my new reality as someone with chronic fatigue syndrome and the ways that that has drastically changed my life. I've said this before, but I am speaking about my own experiences. Um, so if this doesn't apply to you, that's fine. I'm talking about what I've experienced, particularly as someone who hasn't been disabled my whole life. So some of the things that I talk about might seem frivolous or obvious to someone else, but I am learning things that I didn't have the opportunity to know before. I am experiencing things through a new lens. So that's why I'm discussing these things here. Um, I was gonna say something else and I lost the thread. It's a phantom thread. Maybe it'll come back. So, today I wanted to talk about, I feel like, casual ableism or everyday ableism, things that I just didn't really consider before that have become glaringly obvious to me. Um, just a few things that I kind of come across in everyday life that I'm sure people who have more severe or different disabilities have obviously been dealing with and are probably even more frustrated by them than I am. So, the first thing that I've noticed is ableism in architecture. Really obviously, a lot of buildings are not made for people who aren't able bodied when it pertains to like stairs. But it's really egregious when you consider that like some Veterans Affairs buildings do not have ramps. Some disability and social security offices don't have ramps, or they weren't added until like the 80s or 90s or later in some cases, which is wild to me. Like, anyways, that is really concerning to me. Um, I found out recently, I think in the 1800s, there were ugly laws. Um, a disability activist who I've been following more closely lately is Imani Barbarin, and she was talking about them on a video that I will link below. I also follow her on Instagram and Twitter. I will link her handles as well. But they were essentially laws that said that people with any kind of physical or developmental disability should stay out of sight to not upset able bodied people. So not only did people not want to see them, they certainly weren't going to adjust the structure of society or like the physical structure of buildings to make things easier or accessible for them. Um, that it's really upsetting to me. And one of the other ways that I became aware of that, other than the facades of buildings, is this might seem silly, but like shelves, some shelves for me with my fatigue, like in the house, it's really hard for me to like get things out of the shelves now, or I really have to like be like, oh, like bracing myself, preparing myself to do this. And I was thinking when that happened, I was like, why? I know that like some people you need to use the vertical space. I totally get that. But in some cases, I'm like, no, the shelves could be eye level. Like like the difference between like reaching across and reaching over your head and the energy you save, or maybe if you just don't have that range of motion, able-bodied people don't think about this. And I didn't used to think about these things. All of this has been really eye-opening for me, but, like, that's a small thing that I was like, this could be better." Um, Another area that I've seen, and this is very annoying for everyone. If you live in LA, the street sweeping signs and all of the street signs, like, just why? They're contradictory, there are millions of them, it's a mess. Um, but I have a neighbor who is disabled, he has a disabled placard on his car. And I remember one time for the first part of the pandemic, um, they suspended street sweeping, I think from, like, March of 2020 to October, and then they extended it. Anyway, it was a while because people were working at home or furloughed or what have you, so people needed to park on the street, and then they reinstated it sometime within the first year. Um, so my neighbor one day, he was outside and he was upset because he was trying to move his car. There was some reason why he couldn't move it right away, like within the window. And I remember he told me that because one of his kids was helping him. I forget the exact situation, but when the parking enforcement person came, they were like, "Well, I have to give you a ticket." And he was like, "But I, like, cannot move my car, like, I can't get out here in time. I was trying, my daughter was helping me, etcetera." And they were just like, "Well," uh and I think he said that they let him slide that one time. They're like, "If it's here when I come back around the block, I have to ticket you." And, like, you actually don't, though, because this man has a placard on his car. Why? Why? The street's not dirty. Just, like, there was truly no reason for it, especially because in my neighborhood, like, once the street sweeping truck goes around, like, it's done. It's been swept. So, like, towards the end of the 2-hour period, th he wasn't in anybody's way. So that was really upsetting to me when I witnessed it. And then when when I started experiencing over the last 9 months chronic fatigue, having to leave the house just to move my car somewhere else in the neighborhood, I why? 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 It's not hurting anybody. The pavement's clean. Why are we doing this? Um, and again, I know this is something that I'm sure a lot of other disabled people have already been dealing with. Um, but it just really made me think that, which, we already know, everything's in service of capitalism, that if you don't move your car, then you get a ticket. But it's completely unnecessary, and that just, makes me angry. And so, that was another one. Another thing that I noticed was also maybe small, but maybe not, is, commercial volume. And I remember a few years ago, I believe there was a settlement that if you're watching TV, they had to stop raising the commercial volume above a certain level because they know, like, people walk away, so they wanna make sure you're still being advertised to at all times. But I feel like if you're watching streaming services with ads, um, it's it's outrageous. And so for me, um my nervous system is not the same as it was before. So I'm very sensitive to noise. I'm very sensitive to light. So I always have listened to things at a very low volume. People make fun of me for it. And I I have found myself in the last few weeks watching something and then a commercial comes on and it jolts me because again, I get startled very easily now. My nervous system just like I don't know. I don't know what's going on with it. But it, it's unnecessary. And why do I have to be attacked by this volume? I don't like it. Um, and of course, it's based on the assumption that one, everyone is not affected by this noise, and two, everyone is employed and can afford all of the things that are being advertised. But when one is disabled, one's not just buying mascara and Dodge Rams. We're not doing that. So, you know, that could they could just like keep it at a normal volume. It's fine. Um, and in a similar vein, I I noticed a couple years ago, um, during the during one of the Oscars, I think it was 2021, there was a movie before Coda, um, that was nominated for Best Picture, and of course, the name escapes me now. Um, I will put it in the link below. But it was about a deaf character, a drummer who was losing his hearing slowly, and was nominated. It was a really good movie. It was done very well. But during this specific presentation for that movie at the Oscars, they had an ASL translator, and then for the rest of the ceremony, that person was gone. But anytime they talked about that movie, there was an ASL translator because it was a movie about a deaf character. And I thought to myself in that moment, I was like, wait, I feel like in 2021, there should just always be an ASL translator at award shows. And I'm curious, since Coda won last year, if now this will just be a part of award shows. But it struck me then, and my industry does have a long way to go with every marginalized group and representation equal access. But that was really jarring that they had an ASL translator specifically for things pertaining to that movie, and for all other parts of the ceremony they were like, no, we don't need you. That what? That's crazy. Um, so the other thing that I have noticed where there's ableism every day in every way, ironically, is insurance, because it is tied to working in most cases. Or if you have private insurance, you have to have a certain level of wealth, which again usually depends on being able bodied. Um, and if you have a pre existing condition, you can't be insured in many instances. Or if you then have an accident, develop some sort of condition, then they find all kinds of ways to not pay for your treatment. And that is a scam. And it's really upsetting. I'm in a situation now where I have been trying to get a neurologist appointment. I have one, but the time between making the appointment and having the appointment is there's like a 4 month gap, and I need to see the neurologist before that. And so they told me when I made the appointment, keep calling, keep calling, keep calling to see if someone cancels. So I called again last week, and they were like, oh, if you call next Friday, this coming Friday, um, you might be able to get in, because there are 2 appointments next week, in which they were like, we're waiting to see if this person's insurance can cover it. But if not, the appointment will become available. And so part of me was like, yay, I might get in sooner. But I was also really upset because now I find myself in the position of hoping that someone else's insurance doesn't cover the treatment they need. Like, that's the only way that I can be treated in less than 4 months if someone else's insurance doesn't cover them. This is the greatest nation in the world. This is your king. That's what we. So that's very upsetting. Um, and I am also just upset that I didn't really think about these things until I had to deal with them. And I guess that's why a lot of people feel comfortable in their ableism and the way that they dismiss people with disabilities because things aren't happening to them. Um, but I feel like if, well, I feel like if there was perhaps an education or just a way that people could be more aware that these are realities that, again, millions of people are dealing with, um, they would maybe take it more seriously and maybe lead to policy change or something. I don't know. Um, but those are my thoughts about that. I will find I can't believe I can't remember the name of that movie. I'll put it down below. Also, um, I'm wearing my Womankind sweatshirt from the Downtown Women's Center here in LA. It is a shelter for unhoused women, and I feel like they offer really comprehensive services. They also have a shop. So this print, I don't know if they still have this. This is a crop sweatshirt. I think they had a normal sweatshirt. They had a couple t-shirts, a mug, like a tote bag. They also make candles that smell really good. They also sort of have like a consignment shop where they sell vintage clothes. So, if you would like to support some ladies, I will put the link to their organization below as well. And if you have any comments, questions about anything I've covered, please leave them for me down here. Thank you so much.